Коллеги, добрый день! Я вас приветствую на конференции. Очень рада, что вы к нам присоединились. Меня зовут Захарова Ольга, я ведущая этого трека. И я хочу поприветствовать нашего первого спикера в нашем зале. Это Эндрю Сейлс, наш участник из Великобритании. Он является Principal Consultant and Safe Contributor в компании Scaled Agile. И уже больше 10 лет он помогает компаниям проводить agile трансформации, но в последнее время его фокус — это бизнес-agility и то, как структура компании помогает или, наоборот, препятствует проведению agile трансформации и достижению гибкости компании. И в докладе, который мы сейчас послушаем, Эндрю поделится с нами некоторыми особенностями последней версии SAFe 5.0, а также расскажет, как бизнес-гибкость может помогать преодолевать текущий кризис, который связан с COVID. Hi, Andrew. Thank you very much for joining us at this conference. I've introduced you to our listeners, to our participants in Russian. So I've said you've been for more than 10 years helping companies in their agile transformations, but now your main focus is about business agility and how structure helps in this process or stays in the way. And that your presentation today is about some aspects of SAFe 5.0 version and how business agility and SAFe can help survive the COVID crisis most of the companies are now in. Are you ready?
Absolutely ready. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks a lot. We're all ears.
Well, thanks again just for inviting me today. It's really wonderful to be participating in this conference. And as mentioned during the introduction, my name's Andrew Sayles. I work at Scaled Agile, and I actually work as part of the framework team there. So looking to evolve the SAFe framework as we learn more about how to work better together. And today I want to talk about business agility, what it takes to achieve business agility, and also tell a bit of a story to show what business agility looks like in action. And this is a fairly personal story because I want to share how we've used SAFe 5 here at Scaled Agile to survive this crisis and hopefully come out in a much better place. So let's just start by setting a bit and describe perhaps some of the primary challenges that organizations are facing. And you see on this slide a quote from John Kotter, one of the leading authorities around leading change. And as he describes in his book Accelerate, we see that the world is now moving at an unprecedented pace. And what's happening is that the systems, the structures, many of the cultures that exist in our organizations just can't keep pace. These are successful companies for sure, but their management infrastructures, their philosophies, their belief systems just don't allow them to move at the pace that they need to in order to be successful. So we need a slightly different approach. And in his book, John Kotter tells a story, which is a very similar story to how Scaled Agile as an organization was formed. So when we began as a small group of individuals, like most businesses do. We had no formal hierarchy. We had no formal roles. We had a very customer-centric approach, and everyone just did whatever was needed to solve whatever was the latest customer problem. But as we started to grow as a business, we needed to start to add in some of these formal elements, such as a formal organizational hierarchy. And it was things like this hierarchy that allowed us to operate in different countries as we started to expand into Europe, into India, for example. And it was this hierarchy that allowed us to comply with the local rules and regulations. So we had to meet privacy demands, such as GDPR. We had to hire specialists such as sales, finance, and marketing. And we had to do all those good things that a company does as it grows. In other words, that hierarchy gave us the operational strength that we needed to be successful. But as companies keep chasing these increasing economies of scale, this hierarchy gets bigger and bigger. It grows and it grows and it grows. And it starts assuming more practices and more responsibilities that are required from large organizations. And over time, what Kotter started to see was that it starts to conflict with this entrepreneurial network. And the result? Often this network gets crushed in the process, and unfortunately, customer centricity is often one of the casualties. And the real challenge here is that the people who need to work together to deliver value to our customers, to meet their changing requirements and the needs of the market, don't always match with the structure of the hierarchy that we see on the right-hand side of this slide. So the question arises, what do we do about this? And one thing Kotter is very specific about is that the solution is not to trash what we have and start over, but what we do need to do is reintroduce this second operating system. We still need this hierarchy. It supports the current revenue model. It provides efficiency and stability. It ensures that we meet the rules and regulations of the land. But we also need a second system, one that adds the agility back in, and one that focuses on providing the customer with new solutions to address their emerging opportunities and problems they may be facing. So we want a second system that is nimble, adaptable, and in particular is organized around value. So in other words, we need both. And in many ways, when you look at this slide, this really describes the journey that we've been on here at Scaled Agile. We're doing our best to help companies create a second operating system, one that's focused on the customer, one that's able to respond and adapt to changing markets. And by organizing the second operating system around value streams instead of departments, SAFe is trying to offer a way for enterprises to bring together everybody who needs to work together to focus on customers, products, innovation, and growth. And this second operating system is designed to be flexible. So it's built on lean and agile practices and principles. It can organize and reorganize without completely disrupting the existing hierarchy. And it's exactly this that business agility demands. So if we start to think about SAFe and business agility in this way, and we try and help our customers understand that the jobs on the right in the hierarchy are also critical, HR, finance, the back office IT, procurement, for example. But alongside those jobs, we need to think carefully about the network. And it's the interplay, the connection between this network and the hierarchy that organizations need to master to be successful. So that's one aspect of business agility. But alongside this, there's another critical aspect, and that's expressed in this slide. So business agility is much more than just developing software applications or digital systems. It's really about how can we turn these software applications and systems into valuable business solutions. And to do this successfully, we need much more than just the technical teams. We also need to bring the business on board. We need to bring the business into these networks. So we need marketing to help us generate demand. We need marketing to help us successfully launch our products. We might need legal and finance to help us think about new ways for our customers to procure our products. We certainly need them to help us move to more lean and agile ways of budgeting. We might need operations to help us adapt our processes as we launch these new products, and so on and so on. And indeed, about 2 years ago, our customers started telling us this very carefully. They said they were getting much better at the technical side of things, but the real challenge now was that some parts of the organization were still working in different ways. So when we introduced SAFe 5 earlier this year, we refocused from purely technology to include our partners from the business at all levels of the framework, integrating the business teams. Because we realized that to achieve business agility, we really need to get business and IT working in harmony together. And that also meant that we had to expand and extend SAFE itself. We didn't previously have discussions around organizational agility, for example, which focuses on extending Lean and Agile across the business. We didn't previously have much information around the importance of a continuing culture. And up until this point, Agile product delivery had been more focused on DevOps rather than exploring innovative product design using design thinking tools. So as a quick summary, before we get to the story, we need to recreate these value stream networks. We need to bring together the people who need to work together. We need to include business and technology so we can focus on developing and delivering innovative business solutions. And we need to adopt Agile and Lean best practice. And represented on this slide are the 7 core competencies of SAFE, the 7 areas of practice that we see as necessary to achieve business agility. And we need all these things if we're going to be successful at building an agile business. So that's a great theory, I hear you say. But what actually happens when we put this to the test? So what happens to a company practicing SAFE when it's hit with a crisis? Will this second operating system actually work successfully? Now's the time to find out. And actually, it was the time for us here at Scaled Agile to find out. So a little bit of background. We use SAFE here at Scaled Agile to operate our entire business. We're about 150 people on a well-formed Agile release train. And we may be small, but the impact to our business during this crisis was dramatic. And if we want to bring this into focus, just have a look at this slide. So this slide shows the number of people that we have attending our training classes from month to month, all over the world, including here in Russia. And although some classes go up and down, generally we're hovering around 4,600 people every other week or so. And then suddenly, bang. Just consider this graph from a business perspective. Look at February. Everything looks fine. And then 1 month later, suddenly it disappears. And if something like this wouldn't get your attention as a leader or employee of Scaled Agile, then nothing would. And you can see from this graph that there was no doubt that we were in an existential crisis. We had the real potential here to disappear. But of course, we didn't want to disappear because we had customers and enterprises who relied upon us building some of the world's most important systems. So we were in this crisis and we needed to respond. We needed to rethink. We didn't need to rethink everything, but we needed to apply certain aspects of SAFE in order to help us get out of this crisis. And I want to highlight 2 of the core competencies. You see them on the slide here, organizational agility and agile product delivery, that in particular helped us in this time of need, which I think would also be helpful for other organizations that may be needing to respond. So let's start with organizational agility. And I just want to say a few things about what we mean by organizational agility. We'll see in a minute the specific practices, but without organizational agility, without agile across the entire business, it becomes very difficult to respond successfully to some of these challenges. Now, each core competency has 3 dimensions. So when we think about organizational agility, we're talking about lean thinking people and agile teams across the entire business. And why does this matter? Because if we have lean thinking agile teams across the entire business, it means that everyone understands the fundamentals of iterative development. They understand how to deliver value incrementally. The second thing we need is lean business operations. Not just on the IT side, but we also need a very lean flow of work through the entire system. So we need to make sure that we're regularly mapping the activities needed to deliver value to our customers. We need to make sure that we're regularly removing the delays. And if we're not, then what chance do we have to be responsive? And the third thing we need is strategy agility. So when we hear companies like Amazon talking about themselves as being agile, this is what they mean. Of course, they also have hundreds of agile teams doing the work, but they have this strategy agility, the ability to adapt and execute on strategic changes in a timely manner. And this dimension, strategy agility, also talks about market sensing. So how to get close to our customers and understand what it is they need. But sometimes, like COVID, the market hits you like a sledgehammer and you need to respond much quicker. So what did these three dimensions look like for us during this crisis? And how do they support us in being more responsive to this change? So let's start with the teams. We have lean thinking people and agile teams here at Scaled Agile. We do our best to be agile. We're not always fantastic, but we're pretty good. And indeed, we took a decision to train the entire company on SAFe. We continue to emphasize the importance of the Agile Manifesto. And we made a critical decision that everyone in our company is part of an Agile team. The entire business is being run as an Agile release train. And why was this important? Because it meant during this time of crisis, we already knew how to do this work. We knew what we needed to do. We were ready to go. It was part of our company DNA. And the advice here, of course, is don't wait for the crisis. Start to spread these practices far and wide across the organization as soon as possible. Regarding the lean business operations, fortunately, we had just recently used one of our innovation and planning iterations to start mapping our processes using value stream mapping. And this was really starting to help us. We started the processes of rolling out improvements to our systems of work. We started removing the delays where we found them. We had clear visibility of all the work that we were doing, and we understood the steps we needed to do to actually deliver the work. So all of these things collectively meant that we knew how we could adapt these systems during the crisis itself. And the learning that we took away here is that it's really critical to understand how the work actually takes place within your organization and start the work of improving these processes today. And then finally, the third dimension, strategy agility. If you have a look at the SAFe big picture, one thing that you can see is that it describes how work flows through the system. And this is a really critical thing to understand. We need to know how to propagate work and make changes and roll out those changes. In SAFe, the most strategic initiatives start as epics, and they flow through the portfolio Kanban until they get broken down into features in the program Kanban and then into stories that the teams can deliver. Now, not all the work flows in this way, of course. A lot of the work just originates as features that the teams can do directly. But we need this ability to propagate our very biggest initiatives. And we were very fortunate. We had this in place because we were using SAFe, but I know for many of the organizations that I talk to, they have very complex hierarchies. They may not always understand how to bring new work to bear and how to flow this work through the system to deliver it to their customers. So the learning we took away here is to test this. Make sure you understand today the process for propagating these new initiatives and make sure the systems are in place to support this. So that was organizational agility. The second critical competency for us was agile product delivery. And in SAFe 5, we finally had the time to incorporate design thinking and agile product delivery into SAFe. This wasn't always the problem that enterprises were struggling with. So in earlier versions of SAFe, the problem was typically, how do we ship software? So we focused on program execution. And that's what the Agile Release Train and the Agile Release Train roles was all about. But now times have changed, and now Agile Product Delivery is about building the right products for the right customers at the right time. And just like organizational agility, it has three dimensions. And the first is design thinking. A huge body of knowledge behind design thinking, many dozens of books distilled down and incorporated into the framework. And as a company, we needed to harness this, and you'll see this in a minute. And design thinking was ensuring that we were building the products that would delight our customers and helping us to reinstate the customer centricity that is so important with the network. Some things were working well already. We already had a cadence, a program increment that we were developing on. We were also able to release on demand. Of course, we had to make some adjustments. We had to move our PI planning to be remote, but we already knew how to release value to our customers. And I'll show you some of the things that we released shortly. And luckily, we also had an okay continuous delivery pipeline in place, at least one that was good enough to release products quick enough to respond to this crisis. But shortly, I'll touch on why a continuous delivery pipeline is so important to really helping us to respond in an adequate manner. So we put these tools to work. And the first thing we did was to apply design thinking. And as you can see on the slide here, design thinking separates the problem and the solution space. We start by doing a process of discovery. So we seek to understand the problem more deeply, and then we define. We bring that knowledge together and we define the problem statement. And then we move into the solution space and we start developing potential solutions, testing them all the time until we actually deliver what it is the customers need. So for us, we had to start by understanding the problem. The symptoms were pretty clear. No one was coming to our classes anymore. But the real question we needed to answer was, would people learn remotely? And at this point earlier in the year, nobody knew. But what we knew is that if we wanted to survive this crisis, we had to make this remote learning work. So the first thing we did was go and see to better understand the problem. We started talking to our instructors all over the world to find out what was going on. We asked them, what is happening? Are you still teaching? Are your customers stopping their transformation initiatives? And luckily the answer was no, they weren't stopping their transformation initiatives, but now it was all being done remotely, of course. And we also needed the learners. And it turned out that actually many of them, with the additional time they had by working from home, not commute to work, were quite excited about opportunities to increase their knowledge and skills. So we built up some training capabilities across 3 of our courses, and we started testing these as quickly as possible. And we're very lucky at Scaled Agile that we have a team who are very good at taking and understanding this feedback. And what did we see? We started to see personas appearing. And of course, we use personas because it's a great design thinking tool. They allow us to describe these distinct patterns that are emerging from the data. And if you had come to our meetings at that time, you would have seen us using these personas to describe the work we were doing. And from all this research, we found 3 personas. So on the left, cautious Cara. She's not ready yet. She's going to need lots of tools and support if she's going to move to this remote way of learning. Optimistic Olivia, someone who's willing to give it a go at least once. And then leading Larry. He's all in. He's already started embracing these new ways of working. And we use these personas to help us craft the right solutions for our customers. And out of this, a brand new strategy emerged. And what was important for us was that this was a strategy in 2 parts. We needed a strategy that goes short to respond quickly to our customers, but we also needed a strategy that went long to create a sustainable business model. So in terms of going short, this is where we were adapting our existing offerings by providing guidance around remote working. We were providing collaboration tools, guidance on remote PI planning, and of course, moving the European Summit to be a virtual event. And then go long. How did we adapt our business model? We started redesigning our courses from the ground up to support remote learning, creating a digital classroom product. And of course, all the time reflecting on which of our future investments to continue working on and which ones to stop working on because they were no longer relevant. And this also meant we had to change our roadmap. Although we had a roadmap that came out of our recent PI planning event, we had to tear it up. It was no longer relevant. This new roadmap wasn't made for showing external customers. It's pretty rough around the edges, but this was our internal working roadmap that got us through this crisis. And I want to highlight one interesting thing. In the second half of the roadmap, you can actually see that we've split the program increment into two parts, because a program increment time box of 8 to 12 weeks is just too big a batch in this time of crisis. We needed to adapt the framework. We needed to be even more responsive. And what was the most important learning for us? That we needed to ignore sunk costs. Any decision we made today can only impact the future course of our business. So any decisions that we made previously should be irrelevant to this decision-making process. And we know that this is hard to do. It was hard for us to do, but we had to stop working on those things that weren't important to this new strategy. And then what about the network? The network needed to change. So we needed to apply a key aspect of organizational agility. We needed to reorganize around value. So we created 4 brand new agile teams, each with product owners and scrum masters. And generally, these teams formed themselves. They worked out who needed to work together to execute this strategy. So although we value the long-lived agile teams, we also understand that the network needs to reorganize when the work changes. And then, of course, we needed to turn the whole organization around. We needed to align everyone to this new strategy. And that's where PI planning comes in, of course. This is our vehicle for aligning the business to changes like this. Bringing everyone together every 8 to 12 weeks, having the opportunity to realign them to a new strategy, giving them the space to plan and think about the work was really critical to us in this particular time of need. So we'd completed this first step of the continuous delivery pipeline. We'd done the exploration phase, but now was the time to deliver. And in SAFE, we talk about a continuous delivery pipeline as a critical mechanism to deliver work to our customers. For some people, continuous might be every day. Others, continuous delivery might be once a month. But all organizations need to make a commitment to be improving this continuous delivery pipeline all the time. Investing in tools, automation. In other words, this is the lifeline of the business. Fortunately for us, our continuous delivery pipeline was good enough for what it is we needed to deliver. And we started delivering every day, small incremental pieces of value, podcasts, articles about remote working, websites providing training aids and tools for learners and teachers to use, webinars talking about how to use these tools effectively and how to move to more remote ways of working. And we kept delivering these incremental pieces of value every single day for about a month. This was the go short strategy, so the quick response. And as part of that go short strategy, we also adapted our existing training courses to make sure that we could provide learners and trainers everything they needed to teach courses remotely. So digital workbooks now, allowing people to work from the comfort of their own homes. And then, of course, the go long strategy. Alongside this continual delivery, we started to develop a brand new product. Thinking about what a digital classroom might look like, bringing together our platform alongside other tools like Zoom to create an engaging and interactive experience. Exactly the kind of tools that cautious Cara would need to convince them to move to this remote way of working. And the really important thing to emphasize here is that for this crisis, none of this was even part of our strategy. None of it was even on the horizon for us. So the legitimate question to ask is, does business agility get business results? And luckily for us, it appears the answer is yes. We're getting good feedback from the trainers that these remote courses, although not the same as in-person training, are satisfying the learners. But the really important thing is on this slide. Within 60 days, we managed to recover. And of course, we had to manage things like expenses very carefully, but we were very proud to say that no one ended up losing their jobs during this time. So we'd managed to stop the tide and turn the corner so we could continue with the work that we're doing day to day. So how do we conclude? Like every business, we found ourselves exposed to these challenges. Sometimes challenges are good, sometimes like COVID, they're not so good. We faced the same crisis that our customers were facing, and we applied SAFE in order to save SAFE. So specifically, we applied organizational agility to adapt our strategy, to reorganize around value. We applied agile product delivery to better understand our customers' needs and create a new strategy and new products. And we put the SAFE principles to work. We focused specifically on decentralized decision-making. We allowed people to make mistakes along the way because we wanted to give them the ability to make decisions as they were the ones closest to the work. And we started taking a very customer-centric approach, using those personas to better understand the needs of our customers. And of course, in the end, we needed to adapt our whole business model. We were a business built on face-to-face training. We needed to make a quick and radical change. We'll never go back to where we were before. And in fact, when we reflect, this is exactly what we want a lean and agile company to do. So in many ways, we shouldn't be surprised by this. These are exactly the kind of organizations that we're trying to build. But seeing these systems and practices work successfully gives us great reassurance that we're doing the right things. Now, one of the key learnings that we took away was the importance of the continuous learning organization. Because this crisis has taught us so much. We've learned about the holes that we had in our systems, the deficiencies. We learned about problems with our business model and where we were too narrow. We've learned about areas of weakness, and most importantly, we've learned that we have the strength to respond to that. We'll never be the same, but we've recovered, and when we reflect, we hope actually we're going to be in a much better place now going forward. So I just want to say thank you very much. I hope that was an interesting story to hear about how we applied some of the principles and practices of SAFE. And I hope there were some useful learnings there that you might think about or think about applying to your enterprises. And I look forward to continuing the conversation shortly after this talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for your presentation. And I think that's great that you gave us an example. The company which normally teaches others to be agile shows an example of being agile itself. I think this is really great. But still, one small thing, you managed that you still have some pinch of magic to survive. This PIP planning, right? So still you need some magic for it to work. Okay, thank you, Andrew. And you can follow the link in your chat so you can answer the questions and talk to the participants of the conference.